Dr. Hannah stared at the glowing screen in disbelief. Her hands trembled as she ran the medical scanner over her abdomen for the third time. The same impossible result appeared every single time. She was pregnant. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was what came next. "Computer, run genetic analysis on fetus sample," she whispered, her voice barely audible in the quiet medical bay. The alien computer chirped softly. "Analysis complete. Genetic markers identified. Species, 50% Valerian, 50% human." Hannah's legs gave out. She collapsed into the nearest chair, her blue-tinted skin turning pale. Human? How was that even possible? She hadn't been intimate with anyone in over 2 years, let alone a human. "This has to be wrong," she muttered, pulling up the detailed results. But there it was, clear as starlight. Human DNA patterns that she recognized from the research files. Specifically, they matched the genetic profile of Jinu Park, the human scientist working in the research station. Her mind raced. She barely knew Jinu. He was quiet, polite, always buried in his plant samples and soil analyses. They had shared maybe a dozen conversations in the 6 months since he arrived. Nothing romantic, nothing physical, just professional courtesy. The medical bay doors slid open with a soft hiss. "Mom, are you done with your checkup?" Rena walked in, her younger face bright with curiosity. "I've been waiting for my turn." Hannah quickly closed the scan results. "Of course, sweetheart. Go ahead and lie down on the scanner bed." Rena hopped onto the medical platform with the energy of youth. At 25 in human years, she was barely considered an adult by Valerian standards. Her skin had the same blue tint as her mother's, but with the smoother texture of youth. "Just a routine health scan," Hannah said, trying to keep her voice steady as she activated the medical equipment. "Hold still for a moment." The scanner hummed to life, sending gentle waves of energy through Rena's body. Hannah watched the readouts appear on her screen, expecting normal results. Her daughter was healthy, active, never sick. Then the impossible happened again. "What?" Hannah gasped, staring at the display. "What's wrong, Mum?" Rena sat up, concern crossing her features. Hannah's hands flew across the control panel, running every test she could think of. Pregnancy confirmed. Genetic analysis running. Results loading. Species, 50% Valerian, 50% human. Genetic match, Jinu Park, the same human. The same genetic signature. Both mother and daughter, pregnant by the same human man, who probably didn't even know what had happened. "Mum, you're scaring me. What's going on?" Rena's voice rose with worry. Hannah turned to face her daughter, her mind spinning with impossible questions. How could this happen? When could this have happened? Jinu was always so careful around them, so respectful of their customs and boundaries. "Rena," she said slowly, "I need to ask you something very important. Have you spent any time alone with the human researcher? Jinu?" Rena's blue cheeks flushed darker. "Well, yes, he's been teaching me about earth plants. We've had several study sessions in the greenhouse. Why? During these sessions, did anything unusual happen? Any strange feelings or sensations?" "Now that you mention it," Rena said thoughtfully, "I did feel quite warm and tingly during our last few meetings. I thought maybe I was getting sick, but it passed quickly." Hannah closed her eyes. Somehow, impossibly, both she and her daughter were carrying the children of a human who had no idea what his presence had done to their lives. Hannah found Jinu exactly where she expected him to be, hunched over his microscope. In the research lab, completely absorbed in examining some alien plant specimen. His dark hair fell across his forehead as he worked, and she noticed how his presence seemed to make the air feel different somehow. Warmer, more charged. "Jinu," she called softly. He looked up, adjusting his glasses with a friendly smile. "Oh, Dr. Hannah, good to see you. I was just studying these fascinating root structures from the Northern Valley. The way they absorb nutrients is completely different from earth plants." Hannah stood in the doorway, unsure how to begin this impossible conversation. "How do you tell someone they've accidentally fathered children without even knowing it? Jinu, we need to talk about something very serious." His smile faded as he noticed her troubled expression. "Of course. Is everything okay? You look worried." She stepped into the lab and activated the translation device on her wrist. Even though Jinu spoke decent Valerian, this conversation needed perfect clarity. "I need to tell you something that will sound crazy," she began. "But I need you to listen carefully and try not to panic." Jinu set down his tools and gave her his full attention. "You're making me nervous, but okay, I'm listening." Hana took a deep breath. "Rena and I are both pregnant, and according to our medical scans, you're the father of both children." The E. Silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Jinu blinked several times, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "I'm sorry, what?" he finally managed. That's impossible. We haven't—" "I know," Hana said quickly. "That's what makes this so confusing. But the genetic tests don't lie. Somehow your DNA is in both of our children." Jinu stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair. "This has to be some kind of mistake. Medical equipment malfunction, maybe? Cross-contamination of samples?" "I ran the tests 5 times. Different equipment, different samples. The results are identical every time." Jinu began pacing the small lab, his scientific mind trying to process the impossible data. "Okay, let's think about this logically. When could this have happened? I've been careful to respect all your cultural boundaries. I've never touched either of you inappropriately." "That's what I don't understand either," Hana admitted. "But I've been thinking about the timing. Both pregnancies seem to have started around the time of our Harmony Festival last month." "The festival where I was invited to participate in your ceremonies?" "Yes. You stood with us during the Unity Circle. You breathed the ceremonial vapors from the sacred plants." Jinu stopped pacing. "Wait, those vapors, they made me feel strange. Dizzy, warm, like every sense was heightened. They're meant to create spiritual connection between participants," Hana explained. "But now I'm wondering if something else happened." Jinu pulled up his research files on the computer. "I've been studying your planet's biology for months. Let me check something." His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Here, I've documented unusual chemical reactions between human pheromones and several native plant species." "What kind of reactions?" "The plants seem to amplify and concentrate human scent markers. They turn them into something much more potent." He looked up at her with growing understanding. "Hana, I think I know what happened. Tell me." "During your ceremony, the sacred plants were reacting to my presence. They were taking my natural human scent and turning it into something your bodies recognized as a mating signal. We didn't know it was happening because neither of our species understood the biological mechanism." Hana felt her knees go weak. "So you're saying that just by breathing the same air during our ceremony, I accidentally triggered some kind of reproductive response in both you and Rena, without either of us realizing it was happening?" The truth hung between them like a bridge they weren't sure they were ready to cross. The news spread through the Valerian colony like wildfire through dry grass. By the next morning, everyone knew about the impossible pregnancies. Hushed conversations stopped abruptly when Hana walked by. Pointing fingers followed Rena wherever she went. Jinu first realized something was wrong when he arrived at his lab to find 3 Valerian security guards waiting for him. "Dr. Park," the lead guard said in broken English, "Elder Council wants to see you. Now." The council chamber felt like a courtroom. 12 elderly Valerians sat in a semicircle, their blue faces stern and unwelcoming. Elder Kwan, the eldest among them, spoke in a voice that could cut stone. "Human researcher," she began, her words carefully translated through the chamber's speakers, "you have brought shame upon our people." Jinu stood in the center of the room, feeling very small and very human. "Elder Kwan, I understand you're upset, but this was an accident. Neither Dr. Hana nor I knew this could happen." "Accident?" Elder Kwan's voice rose. "How you violate our most sacred reproductive traditions and call it an accident?" "It wasn't a violation," Jinu protested. "It was a biological reaction that neither of our species understood. We're dealing with unprecedented science here." "Elder," so a younger council member leaned forward, "science does not excuse the corruption of our bloodlines. Mother and daughter carrying the offspring of the same alien male. This is an abomination." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the gathered observers. Jinu could see the fear and anger in their faces. To them, he wasn't a scientist who had made an innocent mistake. He was a threat to everything they held sacred. "We demand your immediate removal from this world," Elder Quan declared. "You will return to Earth and never come back." Meanwhile, across the colony, Hana faced her own tribunal at the medical center. Her colleagues, people she had worked with for decades, looked at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. "How could you let this happen?" Dr. Nari demanded. "You're the chief medical officer. You should have known better." "Known better about what?" Hana shot back. "About a biological process that has never been documented in our entire history? You allowed a human to participate in our sacred ceremonies. You brought this contamination upon yourself and your daughter." The word contamination hit Hana like a physical blow. "These are my children we're talking about. Whatever they are, they're not contamination." But her words fell on deaf ears. By afternoon, she received an official notice. Her position as chief medical officer was suspended pending a full investigation. 20 years of dedicated service meant nothing in the face of this scandal. Rena had it worse. At 25, she should have been starting her adult life, perhaps finding a mate through proper Valerian courtship rituals. Instead, she found herself completely isolated. Her friends stopped visiting. Her job at the cultural center was terminated. Even distant relatives pretended not to know her. She sat alone in the family home, watching through the window as protesters gathered outside. They carried signs written in both Valerian script and broken English. "Humans go home," and "protect our purity." "Mom," she said when Hana returned from the medical center, "maybe they're right. Maybe we did something wrong." "No," Hana said firmly, pulling her daughter close. "We participated in a ceremony of unity and peace. If our biology responded in unexpected ways, that's not our fault." But the colony didn't see it that way. The divide grew deeper each day. Some Valerians, especially the younger generation, were curious about the scientific implications. They whispered questions about what the hybrid children might be like. Others, particularly the religious conservatives, saw this as proof that allowing humans on their world had been a mistake from the beginning. The situation reached a breaking point when someone threw stones at Jinu's lab window. The message was clear. He wasn't welcome anymore. Jinu barely slept for 3 days straight. His lab became a fortress of research papers, DNA analysis charts, and half-empty coffee cups. While the colony demanded his removal, he refused to leave, until he understood what had really happened. "There has to be an explanation," he muttered, scrolling through genetic databases on his computer. "This can't just be random." The first breakthrough came when he compared Valerian DNA sequences with human ones. Most scientists had assumed the two species were completely unrelated, but Jinu noticed something others had missed. Deep in the Sci genetic code, buried beneath millions of years of evolution, were identical sequences. "That's impossible," he whispered, double-checking his calculations. But the data didn't lie. Humans and Valerians shared common genetic markers that suggested they had evolved from the same ancestral species. His hands shook as he pulled up star charts and geological data. The math was staggering. Roughly 50,000 years ago, Earth and the Valerian homeworld had been much closer together in the galaxy, close enough for natural space phenomena to potentially carry genetic material between the worlds. "We're cousins," he breathed, "distant cousins who forgot we were related." But that was just the beginning. The real shock came when he analyzed the developing fetuses. Hana had secretly provided him with scan data, risking her already damaged reputation, to help him understand what was happening to their children. The hybrid development was unlike anything in medical literature. Instead of the usual complications expected from cross-species reproduction, these children were showing enhanced characteristics from both parents. Their neural development was accelerated beyond normal Valerian standards, while their physical resilience exceeded human norms. "Dr. Park," a voice interrupted his research. He looked up to see Dr. Yoon, one of the few Valerian scientists who hadn't completely shunned him. "Dr. Yoon, thank goodness. I need another opinion on this data." The elderly Valerian scientist studied Jinu's findings with growing amazement. "These genetic compatibility rates, they're higher than we see between most Valerian couples. Exactly, and look at this. Genu pulled up brain scan images of the developing fetuses. The neural pathways are forming connections we've never seen before. These children might have cognitive abilities that surpass both our species. Dr. Yoon's skepticism melted away as he examined more data. The bone density measurements, the organ development patterns, these aren't just healthy hybrids, they're evolutionary improvements. Word of their research began to spread quietly through the scientific community. Not everyone was ruled by fear and tradition. Some Valerian researchers, curious despite the political pressure, began reaching out with questions. Dr. Mia, a young geneticist, contacted Genu through encrypted channels. "I've been running my own analysis based on your published papers. The reproductive compatibility between our species isn't accidental, is it?" "No," Genu confirmed during their secret meeting. "I think our species were meant to reunite eventually. The universe just gave us a very unexpected push. The pregnancies themselves were progressing remarkably well. Both Hannah and Rena showed none of the complications doctors had feared. Their bodies seemed to instinctively know how to nurture these hybrid children. It's like our biology remembers something our minds forgot," Hannah told Genu during one of their clandestine medical consultations. But the most fascinating discovery came when Genu tested his own blood samples from before and after the ceremony. The exposure to Valerian pheromones during the Unity Circle had triggered dormant genetic sequences in his own DNA, sequences that matched the ancient compatibility markers he'd found. "The ceremony didn't just affect you and Rena," he explained to Hannah. "It changed me too. It activated genetic memories that have been sleeping in human DNA for 50,000 years. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just about one accidental pregnancy or even two. This was about the rediscovery of an ancient biological connection between their species, a connection that could change the future of both civilizations. But first, they had to survive the political storm threatening to tear them apart. The emergency transmission from Earth arrived at 3 a.m., waking Ambassador Lee from deep sleep. The holographic message flickered to life, showing Director Kim from the Interstellar Relations Department, his face tight with concern. "Ambassador Lee, we have a situation. The Valerian government has filed an official complaint about Dr. Park's conduct. They're threatening to end all diplomatic relations with Earth." Lee rubbed his tired eyes. "How bad is it?" "Bad enough that the president is considering recalling all human personnel from Valerian space. The opposition party is already calling this proof that interspecies cooperation was a mistake." Meanwhile, on the Valerian homeworld, the High Council was in emergency session. The Grand Chamber buzzed with heated arguments in 3 different Valerian dialects. "This human contamination threatens our genetic purity," declared Elder Suk, his voice echoing through the vast hall. "We must expel all humans immediately and seal our borders." But not everyone agreed. Councillor Bora, representing the younger generation, stood to speak. "With respect, Elder Suk, this could be the greatest scientific discovery in our history. Should we let fear blind us to opportunity?" "Opportunity?" Elder Suk's voice dripped with disgust. "You call the corruption of our bloodlines an opportunity?" The debate raged for hours, while protesters gathered outside both the human embassy and the Valerian Council building. Signs in multiple languages demanded everything from species separation now to support scientific progress. Genu watched the news coverage from his lab, his heart sinking with each report. Everything was spiraling out of control. His research was being overshadowed by political fear-mongering and species prejudice. That's when he made his decision. "I'm calling a press conference," he announced to Hannah during their secret meeting. "Genu, that's suicide," she protested. "The political climate is too volatile. They'll destroy you. They're already destroying all of us. Maybe it's time for the truth." The press conference was scheduled for the next day in the colony's main auditorium. Representatives from both human and Valerian media packed the room. Along with curious scientists and angry protesters, Genu stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. Some showed curiosity, others hostility. All showed the weight of history in the making. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored Valerian colleagues," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. I stand before you today not as the cause of a scandal, but as a witness to evolution." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Murderer of tradition!" Jinu raised his hand for silence. "For 50,000 years our species have lived apart, believing we were completely different. But science has shown us something remarkable. We are family, distant cousins who forgot our connection." He activated the holographic display, showing genetic analysis charts and evolutionary trees. "The children that Hana and Rena carry aren't abominations. They're the universe's way of reuniting a family that was separated by cosmic accident." Dr. Yoon, who had secretly agreed to support Jinu, stood up in the audience. "I can confirm Dr. Park's research. The genetic compatibility is unprecedented. These children show enhanced abilities that could benefit both our species." But the real bombshell came next. "I propose new legislation," Jinu announced. "Laws that recognize interspecies families as legitimate unions. Laws that protect hybrid children and give them full rights in both human and Valerian society." The auditorium erupted. Some delegates walked out in protest. Others leaned forward with intense interest. Ambassador Lee, who had arrived that morning from Earth, stepped forward. "Dr. Park, do you realize what you're suggesting? Complete restructuring of interspecies law." "I'm suggesting we evolve, Ambassador. Just like our biology is evolving." The Valerian delegate, Councillor Bora, surprised everyone by standing. "The Progressive Coalition supports Dr. Park's proposal. We believe fear should not dictate our future." But Elder Suk also rose, his ancient face twisted with rage. "This human speaks of evolution while destroying everything we hold sacred. The traditional council will never accept such blasphemy." The political battle lines were drawn. Progressive humans and Valerians on one side, traditionalists from both species on the other. In the middle stood three people, whose lives had become the center of an interstellar storm. The future of human-Valerian relations now hung in the balance, waiting for the universe to decide which path evolution would take. The turning point came when Elder Kwan's own granddaughter fell ill, with a rare genetic condition that Valerian medicine couldn't cure. The young girl, barely 10 years old, lay dying in the medical center, while doctors helplessly watched her condition worsen. Dr. Yoon approached the desperate elder with an unusual proposal. "The hybrid fetuses that Hana and Rena carry show remarkable genetic advantages. Their enhanced immune systems might hold the key to treating your granddaughter." Elder Kwan's pride warred with her love for her family. "You're asking me to accept the contamination I've fought against? I'm asking you to consider that what we've called contamination might actually be salvation." Meanwhile, Hana and Rena had grown closer than ever before. The shared experience of carrying these extraordinary children had created a bond between them that went beyond normal mother-daughter relationships. "I felt the baby move today," Rena said, placing her hand on her growing belly as they sat together in their kitchen. "It was like a gentle wave, but stronger than anything I expected." Hana smiled, remembering her own first experience with fetal movement decades ago. "Mine has been very active, too. Sometimes I think they're communicating with each other somehow." "Do you really think that's possible? After everything we've learned about their enhanced neural development, I wouldn't be surprised." The two women had become each other's primary support system. When the colony shunned them, they found strength in their shared situation. When protesters gathered outside their home, they faced them together. Jinu visited them regularly, bringing research updates and emotional support. What had started as an impossible biological accident was slowly transforming into something resembling a family. Not a traditional family by any species standards, but a loving one nonetheless. "I've been thinking," Jinu said during one of his visits, "about what happens after the children are born. They'll need protection, guidance, education designed for their unique abilities." "You're planning to stay?" Hana asked, surprised by the hope in her own voice. "Where else would I go? These children are my responsibility too. More than that, they're my future." The breakthrough with Elder Kwan's granddaughter came 2 weeks later. Using genetic insights gained from studying the hybrid pregnancies, Dr. Yoon developed a treatment that saved the young girl's life. The cure was directly linked to understanding how human and Valarian genetics could work together. Elder Kwan stood before the High Council, her voice heavy with emotion. I have opposed these unions because I believed they threatened our way of life, but they have given me back my granddaughter's life. The confession sent shockwaves through the traditionalist faction. If Elder Kwan, their most vocal opponent, was changing her position, others began to reconsider as well. Elder Su, who had previously called the pregnancies an abomination, spoke quietly. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge what we don't understand. The shift in the council's attitude became clear during a public session where they addressed the colony's concerns. Instead of condemnation, they spoke of careful consideration and scientific evaluation. These developments challenge our traditions, Elder Kwan admitted to the gathered crowd. But traditions that cannot adapt to new knowledge are not traditions, worth preserving. Hannah watched the broadcast from her home, tears streaming down her face. After months of shame and isolation, official acceptance felt like a miracle. Rena squeezed her mother's hand. Does this mean our children will be welcomed instead of feared? It means we have hope, Hannah replied. That evening, the three of them sat together planning for the future. Not just for the immediate challenge of birth and early childhood, but for the long-term reality of raising children who might represent the next step in both species' evolution. They'll need special schools, Jinu mused, curriculum that addresses both human and Valarian history and culture. They'll need legal protections too, Hannah added. Rights that ensure they're not treated as experiments or curiosities. Most importantly, Rena said softly, they'll need love, and they'll have that no matter what else happens. The family they were becoming wasn't conventional, but it was real, and it was theirs. The first signs of labor came to Hannah at dawn, 3 weeks before her expected due date. She woke to gentle contractions that felt different from anything medical texts had described. There was an unusual warmth spreading through her body, almost like the ceremonial vapors from months ago. "Rena," she called softly to her daughter, who had moved into her room during the final weeks of pregnancy. "I think it's time." Rena sat up immediately, her own belly tight with sympathy contractions. "Already? But the doctors said we had more time. I don't think these babies are following normal schedules," Hannah smiled, breathing through another wave. Within hours, Rena's labor began as well. The synchronized timing amazed even Dr. Yoon, who had taken over their medical care when the regular staff refused to treat them. "This is unprecedented," he muttered, checking both women's vital signs. "It's as if the children are coordinating their arrival." Jinu paced the medical center's hallway, more nervous than he'd ever been in his life. Ambassador Lee had arrived from Earth specifically for this moment, along with a small team of human medical specialists. The birth of the first human Valarian hybrids was being documented for history. "Breathe, Jinu," Ambassador Lee said, placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "You're making everyone else nervous." "I just want them to be healthy," Jinu replied. "Both mothers, both children. This is bigger than just our little family now." Inside the delivery room, something extraordinary was happening. As Hannah's contractions intensified, Rena felt them too, despite being in a separate room. The connection between the mothers seemed to extend to their unborn children. "The neural activity readings are off the charts," Dr. Yoon reported to his medical team. "Both fetuses are showing synchronized brain patterns. It's like they're communicating." Hannah's daughter was born first, at exactly 11:47 a.m. local time. The moment the baby girl took her first breath, Rena's son began his own journey into the world. The timing was so precise that the medical staff exchanged amazed glances. "She's beautiful," Dr. Yoon whispered, examining Hannah's newborn daughter. The baby had her mother's blue-tinted skin, but softer, with an almost luminescent quality. Her eyes, when they opened, were a striking combination of human brown and Valarian silver. Rena's son arrived 18 minutes later, his cries filling the medical center with a sound that seemed to carry both human emotion and Valarian harmonic qualities. His skin was more human-toned, but with subtle blue undertones that shifted in different lighting. "Look at their grip strength," one of the human specialists marveled, as the newborn boy wrapped his tiny fingers around her thumb. It's already stronger than typical human infants. But the real surprises came in the hours that followed. Both children showed remarkable alertness for newborns. Their eyes tracked movement with unusual focus, and they seemed to respond to both human speech and Valarian vocal patterns with equal interest. They're already showing enhanced cognitive development, Dr. Yoon reported to the waiting crowd of officials and media representatives. These children appear to have inherited the best characteristics of both species. Word of the successful births spread across both worlds within hours. What had started as a scandal was transforming into a celebration. The hybrid children represented hope for a future where two species could not just coexist, but truly unite. Elder Kwan, who had become an unexpected supporter, issued a public statement. Today, we witness not the end of our traditions, but their evolution. These children carry the heritage of two worlds in their very DNA. On Earth, President Chen addressed the nation. The birth of these remarkable children opens a new chapter in human history. They represent the potential for cooperation and growth that exists when we embrace our differences rather than fear them. In the medical center, Jinu held his daughter for the first time while Rena recovered nearby with her son. The babies seemed calm in their father's arms, as if they instinctively recognized his scent and voice. "What should we name them?" Hannah asked weakly but happily from her hospital bed. "Something that honors both their heritages," Jinu suggested. "Names that show they belong to both worlds." The celebration continued through the night as both colonies came together to welcome the newest members of their communities. The children who had been conceived in controversy were now being embraced as symbols of unity and hope. But more importantly, they were simply two healthy babies, loved by their parents and destined for extraordinary lives. 5 years later, Jinu stood in the doorway of the newly constructed Interspecies Research Center, watching his daughter Mira play with her brother Kai in the garden outside. The children moved with a grace that belonged to neither fully human nor fully Valarian movement, but something uniquely their own. "Papa, look!" Mira called out in perfect Valarian, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of her mother's species. She had learned to switch between human English and Valarian as easily as breathing, often mixing both languages in the same sentence. Kai nodded seriously, responding in English. "The flowers are singing today. Can you hear them?" His enhanced senses could detect sound frequencies that neither parent species could perceive alone. Jinu smiled, still amazed by his children's abilities even after all this time. The research center had been built around studying and nurturing hybrid development, but it had become so much more. It was now home to 12 families like theirs, human Valarian couples who had followed the path that Jinu, Hana, and Rena had accidentally discovered. "Dr. Park," Dr. Yoon approached with his daily report. "The latest applications from Earth arrived this morning. We have 37 more researchers requesting transfers to join the colony." "Any families among them?" 15 couples and 3 single researchers hoping to find partners here. The colony had evolved beyond anyone's original expectations. What started as a scientific outpost had become a thriving community where two species learned to live as one. The children born here didn't see themselves as half human or half Valarian. They were simply themselves, a new generation that belonged to both worlds. Hana emerged from the medical facility, where she now served as Director of Hybrid Health Services. Her granddaughter, for she had come to think of Kai as her grandchild, too, ran to greet her with a hug that could have lifted her off the ground if he hadn't been so careful with his strength. "Grandma Hana, will you tell us the story again?" Mira asked, using the human term that felt right for their unusual family structure. "Which story, little one?" "The story of how we came to be." Hana laughed, settling onto the garden bench as both children curled up beside her. It had become their favorite bedtime story, though it was still morning. "Well," she began, "it started with a ceremony and a human who didn't know he was about to change the universe. Rena joined them, carrying her second child, a toddler who looked even more remarkably balanced between the two species than his older siblings. She had married a human researcher 2 years ago, their relationship blessed by both families and both governments. Tell them about the part where everyone was scared, Rena added, settling beside her mother. People are always scared of things they don't understand, Hana continued. But fear doesn't have to win. Love is stronger than fear, and curiosity is stronger than prejudice. Ambassador Lee, now a permanent resident of the colony, approached with news that would have seemed impossible years ago. Jinnu, I just received confirmation from both Earth and the Valerian homeworld. The Interspecies Family Protection Act passed in both governments simultaneously. Hybrid children now have full citizenship rights on both worlds. It was the culmination of years of legal battles, scientific presentations, and public advocacy. The children playing in the garden would never face the discrimination their parents had endured. Does this mean we can visit Earth soon? Mira asked excitedly. She had heard countless stories about her father's homeworld, but had never seen it herself. Next month, Jinnu promised. We're opening the first human Valerian cultural exchange school in Seoul. You and Kai will be among the first students. As the sun set over the colony, painting the sky in colors that existed only on this world, Jinnu reflected on how much had changed. The research center processed applications from both species daily. Young humans and Valerians came here, hoping to find love across species lines, drawn by the success stories they'd heard. The children born in this colony were already showing abilities that amazed scientists. Enhanced problem-solving skills, intuitive understanding of complex mathematics, and an empathy that seemed to bridge any communication gap. They were becoming natural diplomats and innovators, equally comfortable in both cultures. You know, Hana said as they watched the children play, I used to think that discovery in my medical scanner was the worst day of my life. And now, Jinnu asked, now I think it was the day the universe decided to fix a 50,000-year-old mistake. The hybrid children represented more than just successful biological integration. They were proof that evolution didn't always follow predictable paths, that love could bloom in the most unexpected circumstances, and that the future belonged to those willing to embrace change rather than fear it. As stars appeared in the alien sky, the first interspecies colony settled into peaceful sleep, dreaming of possibilities that previous generations could never have imagined.